Hello everyone and welcome back to FreezeMe. We are headed in the general direction of Fat the Cat's Den, but that is not our destination. Our destination is instead behind it. This is because of all the places to put a salamander, they decided to put one in Hubbiton. And after we collect this salamander, we're going to head to a part of the game that you probably weren't aware even existed, the challenge missions. The challenge missions slowly unlock after you collect more and more golden cubes, and there are 6 of them in total. I think it's 6, it may be 7. All of the challenge missions are hidden in tiny doors throughout Hubbiton like this one. This is the flying challenge mission, and while our flight is usually limited to somewhat of a Mario-style glide, in this case it is infinite. It being infinite, though, does not make it any easier to collect all the coins. Even if we do reach the goal, we have to collect all 20 coins before we get there. Fortunately, we don't need to touch the coins directly, we can just touch the rings around the coins, and the coin will already count as collected. If we did need to actually touch all of the coins, this might be a tiny bit unbearable. I wouldn't call the controls for flying tight or anything of the sort, but they work well enough for you to do this without too much frustration. The main challenge is, actually landing on the platforms. As the challenge goes on, it progressively expects you to pass through more and more rings. Of course, the rings also get further and further apart, and their patterns get way more, erratic. I mentioned that the flight is somewhat reminiscent of Mario's flight, and I'm of course referring to the wing cap. In order to pull up, you first need to be diving downward. Thankfully, you're usually constantly diving downward on this challenge. If you go too far below the platform, though, it doesn't matter how quickly you pull up or how high you pull up, because you're not going to be able to pull a 180. So for each of those challenge missions we complete, we get 5 green coins. And instead of coming back to the hub each time to show you, we're just going to cut from challenge mission to challenge mission because there's no reason for you to wait. And here we are. Welcome to by far the worst part of the game. I spent around 50 minutes on this fucking challenge because it is made to confuse your perception as much as physically fucking possible. Each of these spheres is its own planet with its own gravity, and you have to find 20 coins on all of these. Good luck remembering which sphere you stepped on last, which sphere you're facing, which way exactly is up, which way you don't want to jump because you'll fall into the abyss, and where the fuck the coins are because some of them are on blue surfaces. Now, to be fair, this game was developed entirely by one individual, and I don't see any playtesting credits in the credits. I could be mistaken, maybe I missed them, but I didn't notice any. So this game was developed and playtested by a single person. And I think this trial of your sanity is mostly a result of that. Like, maybe he had a really, really good perception, so he could tell where the fuck everything was at all times during this challenge. So maybe he thought this was perfectly reasonable difficulty when it's actually aneurysm-inducing. I actually emailed him specifically to ask about this one challenge because it was so frustrating for me. And he never did respond, and it's been long enough that I feel comfortable making this video and theorizing how this came to be. Oh yeah, and good luck controlling the camera during this challenge either. The game likes to kinda rip the camera controls out of your hands specifically for this segment. I assume because of the gravity mechanics. Mostly this challenge just upsets me because it really gets in the way of me recommending the game. Like, there's so many things I love about this game, but every time I remember that I spent a fucking hour on this 6-minute segment, I can't fathom myself recommending this to the average person. The worst part is that if you somehow don't manage to die by jumping into the abyss, you'll die because you didn't collect the coins in time, and the time limit is 7 minutes. So each retry of this damn thing feels like an eternity. Okay, with that out of the way, it's time for a challenge I actually like. This one clearly inspired by old two-dimensional platformers and the challenge missions from Mario Sunshine alike. We still have to collect all 20 coins, but the pathway is fairly linear. It only makes use of the most basic platforming mechanics that we've used throughout the game, and I always manage to complete it on my first try. The biggest challenge, as near I can tell, is sliding out of control and into the vast unknowable nothingness. That seems like it would be very easy to do. Especially on this downhill section where I completely miscalculated my slide. But I did a pretty good save. A part of me wants to say that these challenge missions are meant to thoroughly explore the game mechanics, and that's why the one with the gravity balls was so difficult. But not only did gravity not even play a huge role in the game up until that point, but so many of these challenge missions are just kinda gimmicky. And I've already said at least twice that I really like the gimmicky stuff. That's like one of my favorite things about Mario games, and it's one of my favorite things about this game. I just feel like the gimmicks for the gravity ball mission could have been done a lot more reasonably. I really like this challenge mission too. This one's just straight up 3D platforming. Like I said, quite a few of these are gimmicky, but they don't all have to be. And this is some of the most challenging 3D platforming in the game, though I don't know if I would call it quite as difficult as Fat the Cat's Den. I suppose we could freeze these moving platforms we're stepping on right now, but I'm really not comfortable wasting that much time, so I prefer just to be as haphazard in my jumping as possible. That usually seems to work out. We do actually need to fly to this next platform, but thankfully we come to a pretty quick stop when we hit the ground. These coins that are floating off the side of the moving platform might seem kinda mean, but considering we can belly slide any time in the air, it's not all that bad. We just have to have quick fingers. And I could understand why the camera perspective here would get on some people's nerves, but considering I'm actually in control of the camera this time, I don't think that's too bad either. And up here is the one part of the challenge I really don't like. There's a coin floating on a solitary bouncing platform, and it's virtually impossible to see unless you look for it ahead of time. If my brother didn't point it out to me, I would probably still be trying to figure out how to solve this one. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but it still would have taken me a long time. The solution to these constantly moving platforms, by the way, is just to keep jumping. Just jump as soon as you land, and everything should work out. Alright, it's time for some fucking spooktacular shit. We still have to find 20 coins, as always, but this time it's pitch black, and we can't see anything that our light isn't pointed directly at. The atmosphere and music for this part of the game genuinely freaked me the fuck out, and I was like, I didn't ask for this, what happened to my colorful 3D platformer? But it's home to some pretty neat gimmicks, like platforms that seem invisible until you turn your head the right direction. There's also the way that the shadows jiggle and bounce around naturally because of the light source you have. That's kinda cool and makes things seem a lot creepier than they actually are. Like, for example, these monsters, not at all terrifying when you actually see them, but when you just see their shadows, yeah, they're kinda freaky. In spite of the kind of terrifying music, though, nothing bad actually happens in this level that I've seen. And I'm very grateful for that, because if they pulled a screamer out on me, I probably would have shut the game off and shit myself and never played it again. Welcome to the final challenge mission, and this one is just more sliding, more infinite sliding, but way harder. Again, it does help to remember that you can pull back to slow down. But let's say you're understandably just not feeling this one. Well, you can pull the old Mario stand by falling down to a later part of the course. We do have to wait for the right moment to do so, but the right moment will be approaching shortly.
Yeah.